So welcome. Oh, and first I want to make sure everybody knows about our upcoming live conference. If you do enjoy this webinar series, I especially think you'll enjoy our Academic Center Summit. That's going to take place October 14 through 15 near our company's headquarters in Orlando, Florida. It will feature professional development sessions similar to this one, along with some academia training and informational sessions for current or interested clients. Our keynote speakers are going to be Michael Frizzell, who's the Director of Student Learning Services at Missouri State and a former ICLCA president, and Corey Hammond, who's the Director of TRIO at Southern University Shreveport and author of the book I Teach, You Learn, We Grow. And you can learn more about the conference and register at this link that I am going to put into the announcements right now. Welcome to the latest webinar in our Engineerica Education Keynote series. We are very pleased to be bringing you this complimentary presentation. For those of you who are new to us, Engineerica specializes in academic center management systems for higher education. You may be familiar with our software applications, which include AccuTrack, Accudemia, and AccuCampus, and I want to give a special welcome to any Engineerica clients joining us today. And for those of you who are not yet clients, I do want to let you know we do offer complimentary trials of our most popular center management system, Accudemia. This gives you the opportunity to use Accudemia for an entire semester risk-free to see if it helps make management of your center and data collection easier. And if you're interested in that, you can email me at rachelc@engineerica.com, and I will also paste that email into the chat if you want to contact me directly. So we started this keynote series for our clients and contacts who wanted to learn more about best practices and trends in higher education. Each month we feature a distinguished speaker to talk about hot topics in the academic support field. We are still finalizing details for our next webinar, so keep an eye on your emails and on our social media accounts for an announcement for when we open up registration. A quick introduction to myself. I'm Rachel Cook. I'm a client success manager with Engineerica. I was previously a learning center manager for 6 years, so I'm also very passionate about higher education and student success. I also have with me Mark Kehoe, one of our technical support specialists, who's here as my backup and to help with any technical issues that may come up. So I am pleased to introduce you to this month's speaker. Jered Moses joined Northern Kentucky University's Learning Assistance Program in 2010 as a coordinator of the Math Center, and in 2016 became the Learning Plus Associate Director for Tutoring Programs. He holds a BS and MS degrees in mathematics from Purdue University and spent 4 additional years studying mathematics and math education at Michigan State University. He has taught a wide variety of courses in mathematics and statistics, as well as educational assessment and evaluation, mathematics teaching methods, and freshman seminar. So with that, we are very pleased to be presenting his presentation on tutor training, and I am going to go ahead and hand the microphone and the screen share over to him. All yours, Jered.
All right. Hi, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. I know this is possibly a busy time of the semester for all of us. Again, I'm Jered Moses. I want to start out by pointing out a slight change in the title of this presentation, replacing the word training with development. I think that's a better thing that we should be calling our work. So we do some training, but the tutors are people we are developing or helping to develop. So I was surprised a little bit because all of this that I'm about to present was just given to you very nicely as part of the introduction here. So very quick review of who I am. Bachelor's and master's in mathematics from Purdue. I have taught math, statistics, education, intro to college at, I think 9, if I'm counting correctly, different colleges and universities over the past, 30 years or so. 25 years. For those of you who are not familiar with Northern Kentucky University, where I am employed, we are a regional comprehensive university in the Cincinnati metro area. We have about 15,000 students, give or take. As she said, I was hired in 2010 as the coordinator of our math center and then became associate director over all the tutoring programs in 2016. And sort of a brief history of the department and its transition, which will inform some of the discussion later. When I was hired in 2010, The department was basically developmental education plus a collection of peer programs, the Math Center, the Writing Center, academic tutoring, which was all of the content tutoring that wasn't math, and supplemental instruction. In 2011, I helped build the Success Skills program, so an academic coaching program. 2016, we added Pathways in Articulation and School-Based Scholars, our dual credit program, into the department. We reorganized the tutoring programs a bit. So we merged plus tutoring, or the academic tutoring with the Math Center. And this year we were split off again from the rest of those programs. So we are now just the tutoring programs. So that's just a little bit about where I sit and what we've been up to for the past 14 years or so. So now I want to get a sense of who's attending so we can tailor this conversation a little bit. So we have some questions, hopefully preloaded here, or polls. So we are going to do where you work, meaning what type of institution. You're going to run those.
Okay. So that poll is launching now. So if folks want to go ahead and take that. All right, 86, pretty close, pretty close. All right, let's go ahead and close and I will share those responses. So it looks like we have most folks at a 2-year college or trade school, with the second highest number being 4-year public college or university. Then followed by 4-year private college, and then just a couple of graduate onlys.
All right. And your role there. So we're going to open the next poll.
Yep. So what is your role at your organization? So this is a check all that apply poll. So you can select more than one if more than one option applies to you. All right, let's go ahead and close that and I will share those results. All right, looks like most folks are Learning Center staff, not surprised there, but we also have a fair number of folks with faculty roles and admin roles as well, and then just a few instructional designers and IT folks.
All right.
All right.
And which program or programs are you affiliated with or oversee?
Okay. And this is another select all that apply. I am seeing one of these has a much higher number over the others. All right. And let's see, so we have over 80% of folks who responded work in a content tutoring situation, and then followed behind by writing centers, and then SI and peer mentoring / coaching. All right, and we have one final poll here.
We do, whoops.
Oh. And that is, what best describes the main reason you are attending this webinar?
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and close that out and share those results. So it looks like where it's pretty evenly split between the 3 top choices: improve my tutor observation report / assessments, get new ideas for tutor training topics / formats, and improve the alignment between trainings and assessments. I'm surprised the last one only got like a couple of answers, because I do see a lot of repeat guests, but it's good to know that there's other reasons folks are coming in here. So let me go ahead and hide those results and we'll get back to it.
All right, do that. All right, cool. So how did we get here? And we means on my side now. So when I started day 0, day 1, I was basically given 2 things. A tutor training guide is what it was called, which basically covered the basic orientation material, bunch of papers from various sources, probably collected through webinars and conferences like these, and an observation rubric, which is handout 1. So if you go under handouts, you should be able to find handout 1. You can download all 4. I ask you not to peek ahead, but you can go ahead and download them if you want, if that saves some time. And so that will just give you, if you look at handout 1, a sense of where we started, and I'll circle back to that in a minute. by year 2, I, with the help of some colleagues, had basically set up a pretty stable training curriculum that we liked for really 3 semesters worth. So essentially a level 3 CRLA compliant training, and I'll talk more about that later. And then in year 6, as I said up in the intro, we got a major departmental reorganization. So the math center that I was overseeing was smashed in at my insistence, really, with the rest of content tutoring. It made no sense that they were separate things in the same department, and a bunch of reorganization as well with personnel and so on. And really, as we were doing it, that was an ideal opportunity and also mandate. So what we encountered was, first of all, more tutors across more subjects were required to receive more training. So before, for historical reasons, our academic tutors, so all the content tutors who weren't in math and statistics, got almost no training at all. So now that we were unifying that, we really wanted to make sure everybody was getting trained. And we wanted then the training across the department to be consistent, uniform, and efficient and effective. So efficiency, especially in terms of cost, because now that we're training, we went from training probably 30 to 40 peer workers to training over 100. So doubling our costs, and at the same time wanted to pull those all, have a uniform approach to training across those programs. So that's kind of what brought us to this project. So part 2, I didn't actually introduce part 1, but part 2. So I want to talk about outcome goals for tutoring development. And the reason is a tiny bit of theory here. What we wanted to do is what's called curricular alignment, which means a process of reverse engineering, starting with the outcome goals that we're looking for, then figuring out how to assess those goals, and then looking at what instruction or training will get us those get the tutors to those outcomes. And obviously the purpose of using that approach is to achieve a close match between teaching, learning, and assessment. So if you look back at handouts 1 and 2, observation rubric that we were using, first of all, didn't really line up with the curriculum that we were teaching from or training from. And secondly, it wasn't a very clear set of assessments for reasons we're going to talk about in a minute. I hope that's making sense. So I want to now launch into a little activity for us here. Check my time. We're way ahead, so good. So the first step in that curricular alignment is to create these outcome goals. So a goal, ideally a SMART goal. We all know what SMART goals are: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, that you want tutors to achieve as a result of your tutor development program. So what is it we want tutors to be able to do, or to look like, act like, or to know by the time we're done, they're done with our program? And so I want you to try to write one outcome goal for one of your programs or for your program. And I'd like you to share these. So try to write something down. We can share them in the question area. Don't have it one that you already have well, it can be. I was going to say not one that you already have thought about a lot, but it can be.
Not seeing any responses just yet.
Well, I would. It might take a minute.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see set a positive tone during the tutoring session. All tutors will be level CRLA 1 certified within a year of their employment starting. I like that one. It's very clear. It's a very clear goal with a very clear timeline. Jered, do you have any examples of SMART goals that you've used in the past?
That are not our current ones. Ooh, that's a really good question, because I'm going to bring up our current ones or some of
Okay.
our current ones in a little bit.
Well, I'm seeing a couple more in here. I'm seeing
Yeah.
prepared to work with a diversity of graduate learners coming from a variety of educational
Yeah,
and
good.
social backgrounds. To become more confident with facilitating group sessions and become confident presenters.
Nice. Yeah.
There's a lot of tutors that won't like that one, but it's important. Tutors will use open-ended questioning. By the end of the semester, tutors will be able to become CRLA 1 certified. By the end of the tutor development program, 12 months, each tutor will enhance their tutoring effectiveness by systematically collecting and analyzing feedback from at least 5 students per month and maintaining a weekly reflection journal to document and act on insights. Tutors will complete a final review and evaluation of their progress and integrating these practices to ensure continuous improvement in their tutoring strategies and student engagement. That's a
Who
good one,
wrote that in
Lydia.
5 minutes? Come on.
Tutors are providing accurate content information or referring appropriately.
Good. Yeah.
That's an
Yep.
important one.
Yeah, that's one that
Referring.
we have actually that isn't part of our observation rubric, but is part of our assessment.
Rob says content-specific videos for GED seekers and ESOL students. So, Rob, are we talking about them making the videos or being able to access the videos? Sevda says creating and using resources for large group review sessions effectively. Tutors will utilize open-ended questioning techniques that increase student comprehension during the session. Tutor made for students who need some help while we're not available. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's Rob's. Yep. So the tutors are making those videos. Perfect.
Okay.
Stephanie says, tutoring participants will create an actionable plan for independent and concept practice outside of tutoring sessions. And that goes back to a big question I've seen in a lot of circles is what should tutors do when they have downtime? If they do have downtime, sometimes they don't. Help students become independent learners by modeling effective learning and study skills that students can continue to use when studying independently.
Nice. I like that one.
Yeah. How are we doing on time, Jered?
Oh, we are totally fine on time.
Okay.
Let me
All right. Let's
bring up my clock. That would even tell me.
I think we've got some really great responses here.
We did. If you're still working on it, go ahead and work on it. But otherwise, so I want to chime in on a few of these, and some of them are really interesting, showing me how badly worded my question was, or framed the question was, but that's okay. And some of them are interesting for other reasons. So I really like some of those that are, getting at the practices we want to see tutors using. I think it sounded like there were a couple people who said become CRLA level 1 certified, right? So I want to kind of step back from that. I delayed talking about this before. So I'm going to hit CRLA certification a little bit more at the end. We started out as a CRLA certified program. For a variety of reasons, we haven't yet recertified, but we are what I would call CRLA compliant, meaning if we could submit all of our materials right now, it should pass what CRLA level 3 requires. But because we keep changing, tweaking our program, and CRLA went through a period of rapidly changing their requirements, and because of some inherent difficulties that, again, I'm going to talk about later, we haven't gone through the actual process yet. Or again, I should say. So, but stepping back to those goals of becoming CRLA level 1 certified, what I'm really after here, and I didn't say this very well, is how am I going to make that level 1 training program or development program that helps tutors? So what does it mean to say they have been level 1 certified, if that makes sense? What does that look like at our institution? What will they actually be able to do? What will they know? What will their tutoring sessions look like, and so on. So at this point, questions or feedback or thoughts about some of the goals that you see here that you guys have shared?
Rob says, I'd like to see my school return to CRLA certifications.
Oh, excited to hear reasons for and for not doing CRLA. Yeah.
Interesting. Tutors will enhance their communication skills by guiding discussions, providing feedback, and facilitating learning around complex concepts. Okay.
Okay. So before I share my, some of our goals, I want to emphasize that this webinar is sort of working on 2 levels. What I'm really interested in is sharing the process that we went through, and only secondarily the answers that we came up with, because those will be unique to each institution and each program. But I think the process is something that's valuable for any program to go through, especially if you're in a time of transition. But it's always worth kind of reviewing. So let's see. This will advance for me. There it goes. And I'm still screen sharing, right? We're still good.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, good. Okay, so by the end of our 2-semester primary curriculum, so our curriculum is, like I said, is 3 1-semester levels. Level 3 is something very, very few of our tutors ever take. It doesn't even run every year, but 1 and 2 are pretty common. 1 is required, level 2 is optional, but taken by a fair number of tutors and writing consultants. So negotiate an appropriate SMART goal for each tutoring session. Use thoughtful and intentional open-ended and probing questions to encourage and assess tutees' thinking and learning. Maintain an appropriate focus on concepts by intentionally and effectively navigating between specific examples or problems and the general concept. And engage the tutee in active learning, especially by having them periodically summarize content and process. And if you were to look back at handout 1, you would see a lot of these things show up there in some form or another. There is also a lot of other stuff that was talked about in handout 1 that doesn't necessarily show up, or that has been subsumed into these or shelved off to other places. So to a large extent, these 4 came out of when I was doing assessments with handout 1 or observations. What are the things I keep coming back to? What are the things I keep emphasizing? And what are the things that tutors continue to struggle with? So if I'm always saying, yep, you did a great job on that, excellent, 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 it's not a very useful assessment item for me. So these are the ones that we really wanted to push, that we thought were important. And these are, by the way, only the ones that, these are the 4 goals that we assessed during our observation. So meaning we either in person or by watching a recording, watch an actual tutoring or writing center session or what have you. We have lots of other assessments, formal and informal, throughout our training curriculum on very specific points, but I'm focusing on the observation rubric because those are the ones the tutors actually care about. They really, if we have them do a little quiz or do, an in-class project, they do them and they can talk about them, but I don't think they have much lasting impact on the tutor, whereas what we say during an observation debrief does seem to stick with them and have importance for them. So that's why I'm focusing on these ones. Okay, so that is the end of part 2, which was about outcome goals. So now we're going to step back in that curricular design process. So we've got our goals. So now how we're going to assess those goals. So a tiny dose of theory. And on this one, I apologize to all of you with an education background if this causes some trauma, but I'll try to keep it brief. So there's a few big things we talk about when we talk about assessment, right? One is transparency. So do tutors know, or students, first of all, do they even know they're being assessed? Or are you doing, secret observations, which we sometimes do? Do they know why they're being assessed and on what criteria? What do they actually understand about how they're going to be assessed or evaluated? Then there's the big pair, validity. So does the assessment actually capture the thing that I want it to capture, right? So if I want to test or assess, here was one. Did the tutor increase the student's comprehension of the course content, right? Does my assessment of that goal actually tell me whether they increased the student's comprehension of that content, right? We would like that it does that. And then reliability. Does the assessment give consistent results? And for anyone who's ever taken the ed classes, you know this little diagram. So what's the difference between validity and reliability? So validity, sort of if you think of it, trying to hit a target, validity is whether you're sort of centering on the target. That is the concept you want to assess. And then reliability is how well you cluster your shots, if you will. So if different people do the observation, do they give similar responses? If different people, or if you observe the tutor consultant with different in different sessions, are they likely to give similar results, or is it going to be very dependent on the session you observe, and so on? So those are inter-rater reliability, we call the first one, and test-retest reliability, we call the second one. So before I do that, so I want to go back to handout 1 again, which was the assessment that I was given at the beginning and used for a few years. And again, point out, is it valid? I think it probably captures to a large extent, the kinds of things we want tutors to do. So that overall, the concept we're trying to capture is like good tutoring, right? And so it asks 12 questions, which I think are kind of vaguely centered around the 12 steps in the ubiquitous tutor cycle. Reliability, though, it's really weak. I have no idea what a good on any of those questions actually should mean. What's the difference between good and fair on any of those questions? I have no idea. And my idea was different than Paul's idea, was different than Wanda's idea, right? And so that makes it not the best assessment that we could be doing. And that goes back to the transparency. Can the tutor look at that list and say, oh, I know what I need to work on, right? I know what I need to do to get an excellent in this this part of the assessment. So now I want to go ahead and if you like the goal that you set a little bit ago, see what you can come up with as an assessment or feedback item or activity, some way you're going to assess, has the tutor met that goal? Whether it's from an observation or from a written instrument. And you don't have to like write out a paragraph or anything, but yeah, go ahead and see if you can throw that in the questions area.
While we're waiting for that, Rob says, best feedback I ever got was, if I had done what you told me to, I'd have gotten an A. I told him to bring a stronger thesis. We have, who did most of the work or talking during a session?
Mm-hmm.
Assess the friendly tone of the tutoring session through a survey from the tutee.
Oh, okay.
That's good. If you can get the, now one caveat with that that I've heard from a lot of clients is getting students to take the surveys, which, as we all know from customer service lines and being told, if you stay on after this call, there will be a brief survey, and how many of us have hung up on those. There are definitely ways we can encourage that, but I'd be curious to know about other ways people have tried to get students to take those kinds of surveys and what luck they've had there.
So I'm embarrassed to say I don't know about your platform, but I do know that some platforms on the kiosk function can ask a quick, like
Yes.
just the frowny face to smiley face continuum.
We can do something similar, yeah, where you could just ask a quick question. As Karen points out, the shorter the survey, the more likely they will take it, which I think is really great advice. Melvin says, tutor facilitated workshop and or group sessions this semester, yes or no? I think those are.
So Andrea, who asked who did most of the work or talking during a session, I'm curious what most means. So like what's an excellent, to Andrea or to anyone, because we do, like that was a question on our original survey.
So what outcomes are you looking for there?
Right, right, exactly. What's the perfect ratio?
That's a very good question. All right, it looks like responses are slowing down right now.
Apparently I asked too many questions in this survey. So we've talked about a few. Oh, there's one.
Tutor responds to 2D's problem solving by supporting work done correctly and redirecting where errors are made.
Okay. Yeah, and we've already separated out the activity from the share and discuss, but we've kind of merged those together, and that's fine. That's good. Okay, well, those can continue to trickle in if you're still working on them. Mm-hmm. And we can always circle back. I'm good with that. But I'm going to go ahead and, our tutors are required to enter session notes. Would be good to have 90% entered. Yes, thank you. Ours are too, and 90% would be great. Interestingly, it seems our writing consultants are much better at entering comments or notes than our content tutors are. Okay, so gonna now pull handout number 3, and this is our current observation rubric for content tutoring. We have a very similar but slightly tweaked version for writing consulting, since the mechanisms of writing consulting are somewhat different from content tutoring. And I want to just sort of talk through this since we have, oh, what do good session notes look like? Rob, that is an excellent question. Can we circle back to that at the end? Because if we have extra time, I would love to
Yes,
talk about
I
that.
had it
Spend a lot of
flagged.
our,
I think it would be
okay,
a good question for the end.
yeah, okay. So if you can't tell, I'm a huge fan of what we call a holistic rubric, meaning we have a short number of domains and a short number of rankings within them, so they're not accumulating points or anything like that. We have qualitative descriptions of what it counts to score a 1, 2, 3, or 4 in each of these 4 domains. So these domains, planning, questioning, conceptual focus, and active learning, correspond to the 4 goals that I had listed a few slides ago. So planning is about negotiating and meeting a SMART goal for every session. Questioning is about the open-ended question and probing questions, and so on. And you see, first of all, I've numbered it from 4 down to 1. And I do that just so that the first thing tutors see when they look over this are the right answers and not the wrong, right? Not what can you do wrong, but what should you be striving for. So I think it changed the affective dynamic of looking at the this assessment. As far as transparency, this form, exactly as on the screen here, is in the orientation manual that the tutors get during their initial training or orientation. So the very first day before classes start, we have about a 5-hour orientation. This is in the packet. So they have this from day one. They know how they're being assessed. And I think it's pretty clear once somebody has a couple minutes of training on how to use a rubric like this, we get really, really consistent results. So we use these forms both for coordinator staff observations, but also for peer observations. And the training is simply this. You have to meet all the criteria of a level to reach that level. So for example, if we're looking at planning, it says they established the general scope of topics for the session and reached a satisfactory conclusion. If they didn't do both of those things, if they did one of them, we can't give them a 2.5. That's not a thing. They're still at level 2. And the next thing to say is we are really clear with tutors. Level 2 is really what we expect you to look like after orientation, right? When you start tutoring, your first observation will probably be mostly 2s, and we are totally fine with that. Somebody asked, are they mostly about group or one-on-one tutoring? Our program is essentially entirely one-on-one tutoring. So how you do your goals and therefore how you design your assessments obviously is going to be dependent on what your particular program features are, right? I think you can still design a rubric of this sort to assess group tutoring, but obviously the specifics are going to be different. So Sammy, I hope that answered that question. Sorry, I interrupted myself. So yeah, so an like a starting tutor should be at level 2. By the end of their first semester, I would like to be seeing mostly 3s. If I ever see a 1, that's a point of concern. So our goal, like one of our programmatic goals, is that in their first semester, you know, I think the number is 90% of tutors will score all 2s or above on their observation reports. So as long as they're at level 2, we think we can work with them. If they're scoring a 1, I'm, like I said, that would be a flag for me. And then as they progress, as they accumulate experience and training, we expect to see 3s and 4s. So that's kind of what our observation rubric looks like now. You see it's quite different from handout 1. And the main reasons are, number 1, I only have 4 things I'm focused on. Again, when we were using the original rubric, I found half the items we were just kind of skipping over, like giving a perfunctory, yep, you did fine with that. And then there were, you know, 3 or 4 where we spent all of our time talking. And so why not make those the things we focus on, right? On the observation. 2, I know what a 2 means, what a 4 means, what a 3 means. I know the things I'm looking for, and the tutor knows the things that I'm looking for when I do the observation. Okay, so that was part 3, which was about assessment. So now that we've figured out some assessments, now we're going to step back again and actually start developing a curriculum to address those assessments. And the sort of theoretical piece I wanted to throw in here is what's called a spiral curriculum. I don't know if you have an ed background, you may have heard of this before. Bruner was an educational psychologist or psychologist in mainly in the 60s. And this was one of his big, that he had many big contributions, but this is one of them, the spiral curriculum model, which is a curriculum where topics get addressed multiple times throughout the curriculum at increasing levels of difficulty or complexity. So if it's a math thing, right, we don't just talk about fractions once, but we circle back to them again and in different contexts and adding, going for deeper understanding each time and so on. Do I have another? Yes. So why did we choose, why did I think this is a useful model for tutor development? I don't know about you, but at least everyone I've talked to who's a tutor, trainer, or works with tutors, like what you really want is to cram everything into them at once on the first day because they need all this stuff. And we know obviously that's not possible, right? And some of it doesn't make any, I won't say it doesn't make any sense to them, but it doesn't sort of click with them or become real for them until they've had a certain amount of experience. So there's sort of this chicken and egg thing, right? Do they have the experience to see where this is going to be necessary? But then when they have the experience, do they have that knowledge to bridge that gap? So we kind of keep having to ratchet, right? And that's sort of what a spiral curriculum does. It circles back on those topics at a deeper level of complexity as we go on. And in this case, because they have the experience now to have a more mature idea. So if you ask a starting tutor, for example, think of some questions you might ask during a tutoring session, some open-ended questions you might ask during a tutoring session. They're not going to have a good a rich experience to draw on unless they've tutored before. So they just have to imagine what a tutoring session is, and they can make up some open-ended questions, but they'll be able to do a much better job and say, oh yeah, when I was doing this session, right, I could have asked this, and that might have given me a better understanding of what the tutee understood or didn't understand. So the spiral curriculum model, I think, is a very powerful one for tutor development. And to circle back now to the CRLA question, it is a difficult model to square with the CRLA requirements. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying the CRLA requirements are bad. They're just difficult to square because CRLA sort of encourages, like handout number 2, a kind of topic of the week. It doesn't say you have to do a topic of the week, but it sort of leads one naturally to a topic of the week kind of training design, curriculum design, right? Whereas Spiral needs to have time to like come back to those things again and again. So getting those two to work together is complicated. And so to go back to that question we had before, and I'm gonna see if I can find it, but there was a question about CRLA specifically. And
just about why you moved away from CRLA, or
it had a little bit more in it, and oh, here we go. I found it from Sammy DeSalvo. Excited to hear reasons for and not for CRLA. It's expensive. The CRLA is expensive and not widely utilized. Our program was also the same as what they're doing when we initially certified. Yeah, so sometimes, and for us, it's been a question of like, how much do we want to shoehorn this into the CRLA, the specifics that CRLA requires, in order to have that, like how much value does that endorsement have versus for us having exactly the training program that we want, regardless of the specific topic requirements that CRLA imposes. So that's kind of the struggle, right? They both have value, and the question is kind of how to balance those two things. And if there are questions, I can say more about that, but I will leave it there for the moment. And finally, that brings us to, oh, look at that. I even had a note on that. Yeah, I thought I did. And so now we can pull up handout number 4, if you like, which is our current basic curriculum, or at least a sample schedule of our basic curriculum. And I'm going to pull that handout up too. I'm a little worried if I do that. I don't know what's going to happen to my screen share. Is it still there? The screen share is still there? Okay, good.
Yes.
I just want to make sure I can see it. And I think I put a note in here. Yeah. So part of our balancing, so I talked earlier about the fact that we had to pay a lot more attention to the cost of training, just because we had a lot more tutors being trained. And part of that was we used to just have like a training every week. and tutors were kind of expected to come, at least in the math center when we had that, and the writing center. We realized we could not run 15 training sessions for 120 peer workers, student workers, on the budget that we had. And so we had to scale back. And so what we did is we packed as much stuff as we could into the orientation, which, as I said, is 5 hours the week before classes, like one day the week before classes starts. The days depend on which program they are participating in. Then we have a training each week, but only certain trainings are required, and then they need to accumulate a total of 6 in order to complete the training. So we consider the orientation 4 hours of actual CRLA compliant stuff, and then we have 6-hour-long trainings that they're going to complete during the 16-week semester. Of those, a few are required. I think 4 or 5 are required, and then they can pick and choose from among the others. They are absolutely welcome to join us for all 15 meetings or whatever, but they are not required to. And that cuts down on many of them coming for more than they are required to, even though they might earn an extra $10 or so for doing it. So we have, for some of our key concepts, 2 sessions on a topic, right? So what we call tutor cycle gets hit twice, and that really covers, so if you're familiar with the 12-step tutor cycle model from the 80s, it starts with that, but then it gets in specifically into things like how to set a SMART goal. We found that tutors struggled with writing a SMART goal a lot more than we thought they would. And then how to write good session notes, which I know we have a question pending about that. So that's also covered in the tutor cycle sequence. And actually that tutor cycle idea is then repeated in training level 2 and level 3. So we always start out with that. But then some of the others, so questions has a 1, and then later we cycle back to questions 2. We run the required ones twice just to give maximum opportunity for attendance. There's another one I thought, brain-based learning 1 and 2, and that focuses a lot on asking good questions and various other brain-based learning topics. So that's kind of our current curriculum. So we tried to work in as much as we could that spiral curriculum idea. It's hard when you only have a very, very finite number of training sessions. But this is kind of how we made it work for us as much as we could. I've lost my control, my Zoom side. There it is. Okay. So that is all I have. So I'm happy now to circle back to some of those questions. So I know there was a question we were going to do. What do good session notes look like?
Yes.
That is great. So different people have obviously different intentions with their session notes. The one, right? Obviously, if it's being stored anywhere, from my perspective, the most important thing is to train them what not to put in a session note, lest it show up and reflect badly on them or you or the program or what have you. So for me, I did not want narrative accounts of what happened during a tutoring session. Meaning, I don't want to know, first we worked on this problem, then we worked on that problem. Other coordinators I've had do want that. That's not what I want to see. What I want to know is, can I answer those kind of assessment related questions or our goal related questions? So we actually have an acronym. It's GORE, G-O-R-E, which we constructed because it was memorable, even though we had to stretch a little bit to make it work. So G-O-R-E, G is what goal did they set? O was their objective met? So once they set their SMART goal at the beginning, were they able to successfully complete it or not? And if not, why? R is the readiness of the student. So we want to know, did that student come prepared for the session? Did they have their textbook and their notes and their calculator or whatever the things are that they needed? The rubric for a writing session, that kind of thing. And E, is there anything extra we need to know that happened during that session? So anything that might get back to us from other means, so if there was a problem in the session, typically we want to know about it before somebody else is asking us about it, right? Before we get a student complaint, we want to have the tutor side on record. That very rare things, of course, but it is part of our acronym, and that's it. If they have the GORE, that's what we want in our session notes. So I'm curious to think what other people do with their session notes, if you have other components that you want.
If you have suggestions, you can put them in the questions box, and I'm not currently seeing any other questions, so we'll give it a few seconds. Just as a reminder, you can put those in there. And then I know that we had the handouts. If anyone was not able to download those, don't worry. We will be including those with the recording along with the slides, correct, Jered?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, great. Angela asks what the O stands for again.
Was it obtained, I think, is how we phrased it.
Okay.
So the point is, did they meet their goal? But
okay.
Gumiti didn't work, or Gumuri didn't work as well as Gore. So
Yep.
Like I said, we had to shoehorn that a little bit.
And then Anne asks, Anne says it gives other tutors working with students to know about the previous sessions and challenges. So that's another important aspect of those notes.
Yeah, it does. It depends on how you store that information and who gets to see it. But yeah, it absolutely can.
And I do want to mention in Accudemia, there's a very handy feature. You can have just open-ended notes, but you can also have a questionnaire similar to a survey that's easy for other tutors to see what's happened in previous sessions. So using a tool like that, make it as easy as possible, both to take the notes and to retrieve the notes, and you'll probably get stronger results from your tutors as well. Okay, let's give it another few seconds if anybody has any additional questions before we close out for the day, because I know a few people have had to leave for time. All right, so I do want to remind everyone we are offering that complimentary trial of Accudemia. If you want to take a look at those features there, you can send me an email. I'll tell you a little bit more about how to get started with that. And we are having our conference this October, so just over a month away, but if you do have some extra funds and or if you're already in the Orlando area and you want to attend a conference, you can sign up on that link that I shared in the chat. And let's see, looks like we don't have any other questions, so we're going to go ahead and close out. Go ahead, Jered.
Real quick is if people do have questions after the fact, you can include my email my email address in the email that has the links to the documents. Yeah.
Yep, we will definitely do that. Thank you so much, Jered, and thank you for your time today. And thank you everybody for attending. Again, we hope you are having a great week so far. And if you are able to fill out that survey on your way out, we would greatly appreciate your feedback. And have a great rest of your week. And we'll see you again at the next Keynote webinar.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.